Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Piglet's Big Game for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time we've completed everything in terms of Rouge Dream, despite the fact that we need to head back into that dream eventually, until whenever we decide able to tackle through Bravest of the Mall challenges once again, but that's for discussion in a later day. So today, for this video, it's about the fact that we're going to be moving on to the next dream in the game, which appears to be Eeyore's dream. Not Owl's dream, but Eeyore's dream, essentially. So because of this though, let's just go inside in this cloud and see what happens there. So, Eeyore fell asleep, sad and gloomy, never imagining that his friend Piglet would come to cheer him up. And I can assure you, with that Thorns picture right there, for that particular clouds right there, that's actually a throwback to the films of Pooh's Grand Adventure in search for Christopher Robin, because of, just trying to explore through any other places and all that stuff. So, relatively speaking, as far as this dream theme is concerned, it's like a castle, medieval, manor, for that matter. Well, except the noticeable differences this time I just realized is that I'm pretty sure certain sections are actually got a bit bigger, and on top of that, there are some more sections to boot. So, either way though, this is where the point where the game starts to get a bit lengthy and longer, especially concerning about the fact that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on puzzle solving. So because of this though, not much else to tell for this point, especially because concerning about the fact that it's been about, 5 days ago since we've actually last played this game for sure. Although, mind you, about the fact the matter is though, I'm pretty sure that Joy, she's almost finishing up with the forms of WarioWare smooth moves before we move on to the next couple of Let's Plays and beyond. And on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that I think that's as far as I can able to try to discuss upon things. Well, aside from the fact that there's one little key factor and I'm pretty sure that Tiana, she obviously forgot to mention about, in terms of the forms of in Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, that basically though about the fact that we are very glad that we finally managed to get ourselves Kirby's Dream Collection on the forms of the American version of the game, because mind you, we still have ourselves the American Wii, so you know what that means. And during at some point, maybe potentially this year though, that we can finally get a chance to able to actually just do some bit of recording footage for the sake of the new challenge stages that was not found from the likes of the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland back on the Nintendo Wii. So even then though, that would be pretty exciting, all things considered, especially because, well, for the longest time, I was expecting to able to try to get the game back in a day, but of course it's dollars only, and because of that though, the game never saw the light of day, on not only in Australia, but also the European countries as well. Which, as far as I'm aware, because I don't know about licensing issues or something, or perhaps even maybe because of the forms of power factor, it's a bit tricky to explain of why this is happening for the sake of not being re-released on not only in Australia, but also the European countries as well, including the United Kingdom as well. So it's kind of similar to forms of how it does it in Mario Super Sluggers for that matter, including Excitebots as well, which I can assure you about the fact that it's just a racing game in some sort of, so either way, so a few things I want to explain while this is happening is that, well, today's date, of course, is the 18th of April today, in this case in 2023 today. Naturally speaking, about the fact that we've only just got about 3 more days to go until Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp has finally going to be released on the Nintendo Switch after that particular massive delay since a year ago. So either way though, I'm not exactly sure of how the reviews are going to turn out to be, but I'm sure we'll stay tuned for that until specifically possibly next week or something like that. So either way, it seems kind of weird that we actually going to be backtracking into that particular fire right there. And then as a result, I think the reason why we came here because of there was actually a spider web that is actually blocking our path. But before we get into more details onto this though, let me quickly double check of any certain sections I was missing onto. But either way though, that might be something else entirely. So Anywho though, I gotta say, I really do like the actual, the music in the background in this particular dream as far as I'm aware, because this sure looks a bit more atmospheric as well. So, relatively speaking though, as I said before, there's no way we can able to actually experience Owl's dream, and even Tigger's dream as a matter of fact. And I can assure you that one of those playable characters will be absent in this version. Well, I guess supposedly enough that the only two playable characters you're going to be playing as in this version of the game is not only Piglet himself, but also Tigger as well. So, yeah, because of the Game Boy Advance's limitations. So, yeah, I can totally see why this actually cuts through for the sake of, well, it's pretty tricky to explain, because again, it's been, you know, 5 days ago since we've actually last played this. So, either way, time to activate the actual bridge, so that way we can able to actually traverse and even progress. So, either way, now I suppose I should also mention about this as well, that I can assure you about the fact the matter is though, that when it comes to like, as far as what Tiana she's already mentioned about, ever since enjoying the forms of in yesterday's, you know, Kirby's Return to Dreamland's Deluxe playthrough, basically about the fact that she actually briefly mentions about, it's been 10 years ago since the April 17th, 2013's Nintendo Direct has been firstly introduced. And my god, looking back in it right now, I was quite pleasantly surprised about the fact that time flies, you know? Especially concerning about the fact that they did obviously mention a lot of things, and first off, there was actually a bell right there, which, fundamentally speaking though, we can able to use the bell to, once again, just trying to able to actually access the Eeyore's house itself, you know, just like the forms of how it does it on the console version of the game. And speaking of which though, it's about the fact that we come across into this tree monster twice so far, for the sake of the forms of this version of the game. Well, mind you, about the fact the matter is though, is that I'm pretty sure to you that unlike the console version of the game, you only experience that tree monster twice throughout the majority of the console version of the game. Whilst in this, I'm pretty sure that we will come across into more of those things later down the road. So, yeah, I can assure you for this point, and something tells me there's gonna be, yep, another one right over there. So that's 3 tree monsters that we actually bump into so far. So, yeah, it seems kind of strange, kind of think about it. So, no, of course, as I mentioned this before, there's no way we can able to go into Owl's dream, but that's just because about the fact that there's no way we can able to experience the Liberian environment, unlike the console version, and so applies with the seasonal-based carnival setting from the Tigger's dream. So, either way, time to take on this another tree monster, so that's now 4 of those tree monsters that we've actually bumped into. So, anyway, so let's take a look back on the forms of that particular discussion about the fact that with my perspective of how do I think about looking back on the forms of that particular Nintendo Direct, based off on the likes of 2013 in April 17th. And I'm gonna say, it is pretty good for the most part, looking back in it. Like, for instance, I do remember that time they, you know, briefly mentioned more details about the forms of Mario Luigi Dream Team, or Dream Team Brothers, for the likes of the UK version. And I still remember getting hyped about the game back in the day, despite I didn't actually get the game day one, sadly. Well, mind you about the fact the matter is though, because I was busy playing, other retro Wii games here and there, like Mario Party 9, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Trilogy, and on top of that, just any other games I've sort of missed out back in the day. So either way, and also I do remember that time they briefly mentioned about the forms of the gameplay footage of Mario Golf World Tour, despite the fact that it originally did say it's going to be out on 2013 in summer, but it's been pushed back until 2014 due to the forms of, you know, online capabilities or somewhat like that. So either way, and then as far as I'm aware, speaking of Mario Party, I kind of believe it's been 10 years ago since when the very first 3DS Mario Party game has been announced, which eventually turned out to be Mario Party Island Tour later down the road. So looking back on the forms of the very first announcement trailer for the Mario Party game on the 3DS, in this case the very first one they've announced for the 3DS, it seems that it actually has a lot of differences between the final version of Mario Party Island Tour compared to its debut trailer ever since in April 2013, is that I've noticed that the lighting on certain boards are a little bit different compared to the final version of the game, and also with the forms of how the items utilized that unlike the final version, it's all proper items, whilst I believe on the 2013 version of that particular footage on April, it shows us cards as items looking back on it though, which that kind of reminds me of something related to Sonic Shuffle a little bit. Well, except the fact the matter is though, it's just about the fact that, well, it's been quite a long time since I actually have managed able to look back on certain things like that. And on top of that, relatively speaking, I do remember that time when they first shown us a brief second of Rosalina's appearance from the Mario Party game for the very first time, despite she's not playable until Mario Party 10 and onwards. That basically though, it's nice to be able to see Rosalina in a Mario Party game despite she was actually the NPC. And on top of that, I do remember that strange feeling about the fact that while looking back on the forms of, well, you know what I mean when it comes to the forms of Mario Party for the 3DS, in this case, Mario Party Island Tour, and then basically I do realize about the fact that there's that strange symbol on that particular space once you get to the halfway point in Bonsai Bill's Mad Mountain, which later on in the final version they replaced that space into the actual question mark switch. And because of that though, I believe something tells me with that strange icon it actually represents the Bonsai Bill is actually going on to the second half of the board. And I think that's about it basically. Now I do remember that time about the fact that I was so excited how the minigames turned out because obviously it utilizes the 3DS unique features with the gyroscope controls, and on top of that with touch controls just like DS and stuff like that. Oh, and on top of that, I do remember that time that unlike the final version of the forms of one of those minigames in Mario Party Island Tour, you know you have to able to memorize the forms of the enemy icons. Like usually in the final version, they only have like, I think it was called Matchmaker. I could assure you for this point. Basically though, it's about the fact that they only contain 12 enemy faces, whilst compared to the back in the day, in April 2013 Directs, they only shown us 16 of those enemy faces, and you are able to actually come across into 6 rounds, unlike the final version, it only has 3, to able to cut things a bit too short, for the sake of the minigame's length. So, kind of interesting all things considered, especially concerning about the fact that, well, despite the fact that in the UK version that it did say, looking back on it right now, that it did say winter during its release, but then it wasn't until we able to get the game until early 2014. So just to make things a little bit more of a British localization and stuff like that, which I can possibly understand why. So either way, and something tells me we need to memorize the correct order in terms of Eeyore's age. So, I might be a bit puzzled about this. Oh, there we go. It seems kind of easy peasy, because all I have to do is start from the left all the way up to the right. Okay, that seems so self-explanatory. Especially how certain puzzle segments are pretty easy to manage. And what the heck is up with this magical mirror thing? That seems very odd for a Piglet's big game, and okay, I have no idea what the heck just happened right there. But either way, something tells me about the fact that much like the console version, not able to complete this dream is that we need to recover one of the 3 colored balls. However, the biggest difference is that since we're on to the 3rd dream in this version of the game, something tells me I don't think we can come across into a talking door anytime soon, until, let me guess, the rabbit stream I could assuming for this point, because, you know, unlike the console version, you do come across into a talking door by the end of Eeyore's stream, once you're able to, you know, bring the light back into the actual main room itself. So, either way though, while trying to come across into 2 Heffalumps. So, and speaking of these Heffalumps and Wurzels kind of enemies, as you probably already noticed, is that aside from that very weird interactive mirror that we somehow face off against, there is also technically those enemies, as I've already addressed that from the last video or something like that, that we know with those Wurzels with barrels on them. These are known as, I would say hide and seek, barrel Wurzels, as far as I'm aware. Well, according to the forms of someone said in the comments down below. And kind of think about it, they do kind of remind me of the forms of hide and seek Wurzels a little bit, except they all dressed a bit differently. Because, you know, hide and seek Wurzels is almost like a Dracula kind of Woolsaw in some kind, whilst the forms of barrel Woolsaws, they are just simply using barrels to protect themselves from not being too scared about Piglet. So yeah, but they function kind of like the same way as hide-and-seek Woolsaws for just a little bit. So either way, now we've actually picked up that item right there, so that will be potentially trying to lead us to something that's very important until later on anyway, so. But anyway, and also looking back on the forms of that particular Nintendo Direct, as I mentioned this countless amount of times already, I do remember about the fact that not only does it bring new footage of New Super Luigi U, which I was very excited about back in the day, and on top of that, they did mention about the forms of the download version of the game, did say during in summer or something like that. Oh, and on top of that, after New Super Luigi U DLC was a thing, while looking back in it right now, that also I was very surprised that with Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the 3DS has also been revealed back in the day in Journey forms of 10 years ago, which, kind of thinking about it though, about the fact that I do remember playing it lots of times back in the day, specifically the 3DS version of Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, it's able to actually brings us to new items that makes the journey a little bit more comfortable for you if you have a lot of frustration here and there. Well, and on top of all that stuff though, I was very excited while looking back on about the fact that they did somehow say the new world is actually fully introduced, which is known as Cloud World. Kind of a weird name for worlds like that, but regardless of such though, it's about the fact that it's pretty nice to see how the 3DS version of Donkey Kong Country Returns did somehow brings us something extra to the table, aside from the fact that, well, there was also the original mode in there as well, but aside from that, yeah, I guess that's all there is to it. And also, I do remember that a long time ago, during 10 years ago as well, they obviously mentioned a new Yoshi game on the 3DS, which later turned out to be Yoshi's New Island, which, in the end though, I found that game pretty good still. Despite it does have some issues though, mainly the soundtrack most likely is probably one of the weakest aspects because of all that kazoos they're about to be using a lot. Oh, and on top of all that stuff though, whenever I see the egg dozer mechanic on Yoshi's New Island, looking back on it though, well, at least whenever they first reveal it, back in 2013, I was quite pleasantly surprised to see how that's gonna turn out while looking back. And on top of that, they also managed I remember that back in the day as well, they shown us the reveal of Mario and Donkey Kong Minis on the Move on the Nintendo 3DS, despite the fact that you can no longer get the game anymore, sadly, because it's on eShop exclusive download-wise, which I know for a fact that there is technically a way you can able to actually make the actual process a bit faster or quicker, rather than need to worry about the forms of paying real money, assuming of course if you want to do a lot of hacking to your 3DS, assuming so anyway. And yeah, I do remember that time they mentioned about the forms of that game, and despite the fact that I haven't exactly got into that game back in the day on day one, well, that's just because I was very excited about Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the 3DS, because after all, I can finally play the game on the go back in the day on the 3DS, despite the fact that it has some bit of weird issues, mainly with the frame rate, and on top of that with the forms of how the controls themselves. But regardless of such though, it does take me a bit while to get used to. Oh, and I do remember that time as well, that the Wii U does manage to bring in a update version of that particular thing itself. Like basically, for instance, on the spring update in the Wii U, looking back in it right now, since in 2013, that basically though is about the fact I think that what they did improve back in the day was the actual speed of whenever you return back to the home menu and stuff like that, whilst compared to when it first launched, it take absolute forever to able to actually load back onto the forms of the Wii U menu if you basically had enough playing the Wii U game for a little while. Oh, and on top of that is about the fact that there's actually installed software that basically though, while you're trying to play the game, which is always a nice feature while looking back in it, and that way you can automatically download or of the actual the software updates. Again, I apologize for that particular tongue twist in the end, folks, because I was try my best to mention about something else entirely, but during that specific process though, it takes a bit of some time to able to just looking back on certain things as far as, you know, 10 years onwards though. So either way. Oh, in addition to that particular stuff though, is about the fact that I do remember that a long time ago, they did somehow mention about the forms of the virtual console related thing for the Wii U, which is always a cool thing. Well, despite it's nothing special at first glance, just because of all that, they only did utilize the NES games at first, but then when it gets to 2015 and onwards, I was pleasantly surprised they not only include the Nintendo DS library of games, but also Nintendo 64 stuff as well. So, but either way though, that might be some consumption. And on top of that, I do remember that time when they first revealed some more gameplay footage from the likes of Pikmin 3, for not only compared to the forms of E3 2012, but also they've shown us a new Pikmin type back in the day, which later on became the forms of winged Pikmin, which obviously they'll attempt to fly, and all that stuff. So either way though, potentially speaking though, that's actually a nice little addition to that. Oh, and on top of that, about the fact the matter is though, I remember back in the day, they finally managed able to re-release Earthbound on the likes of the Nintendo Wii U Virtual Console version, and everyone else, well, for Earthbound fans out there, they were very, very happy about this, especially concerning if, well, specifically for those of you who lived in the UK country, they'll finally get a chance to able to play it. Well, assuming of course nowadays you can now able to experience the game even more thanks to the Nintendo Switch online subscription services. And on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that I'm really hoping they're able to actually add it in some more Game Boy games into this month. Well, sure enough though, that we've already got one from the likes of the forms of about a week ago. That's of course Pokemon Stadium for Nintendo 64, despite, you know, you can't able to actually transfer your Pokemon to your Pokemon Stadium game, which is a bit of a shame. And on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that until tomorrow anyway, Spring Tour for Mario Kart Tour is going to be, well, approaching at some point in a lesser than quite a few months at this rate, or quite a few hours, was what I meant to say. Because I know for a fact that I just almost got confused by the forms of the actual daily schedules at this point. Because I know for a fact that it's been like, you know, as I said, 5 days ago since we've actually last played this, so... And thus, exponentially, that it seems that we actually onto the halfway point of the game already. That's just mainly because about the fact that, okay, there's nothing we can do in here with this sword for some reason. Seriously, what's the actual main emphasis on about the fact that did Piglet just somehow wield the Excalibur or something? Or maybe he doesn't know how to fight enemies back. So either way though, because you might find it a bit too violent for his taste, which is probably understandable because it's a kid's game, so... Whilst unlike Sonic the Hedgehog, he utilizes the sword one time by the forms of Caliburn, from the likes of the forms of Sonic and the Black Knight. And I don't know about Mario though, well aside from in the Super Smash Bros. And stuff like that, with the beam sword and stuff like that. But either way though, still, that's... I have no idea why I've managed to bring that up. Alright, so looks like that, yeah, I think something tells me we do need to insert the sword into one of the armor statues. So that way, we can now able to, oh jeez, almost gonna get hurt by the forms of, or scared, by the forms of that particular barrel Woolsor right there. But thankfully he stopped at place, or at one place or another, so that way we can able to deal with him from that way. So yeah, if he starts hiding right here, basically much like hide and seek Woolsors, the only way you can damage him is by letting him getting you know, his head pop up, and especially noticeable with how, again, it's a bit tricky to explain because it's been quite a few days since I actually mentioned something more details onto this though, especially because, well, at this point in time about the fact that I'm actually kind of felt a bit worried about the fact that, well, I've got nothing else to say at this point. Well, mind you about the fact that we're pretty much at the, you know, the halfway point of April already before we move on to May. So, either way, so yeah, now we've actually got ourselves the water vial right here. So that way we can able to, you know, switch off the water fountain for doing so. And before we get onto that though, we need to double check on certain things here and there. So, while simply trying to take down this basic Woolsor right here, so... Anywho though, so yeah, and I do remember that time as well, despite I'm not really a Fire Emblem fanatic, that they obviously did manage to bring into ourselves the 3DS XL edition of Fire Emblem Awakening, which as a result that it does look pretty cool at first glance. And on top of that, they've shown us the forms of DLC for that particular moment. So yeah, I guess that's something. And on top of that, I do remember that time they first announced there was a 3DS equivalent to Lego City Undercover called Lego City Undercover The Chase Begins. Then I didn't seem able to get the game in day one either, but that's just because I was pretty hyped about the forms of not only for, you know, Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, but also with Mario Luigi Dream Team Brothers until when I got the game until October and during in 2013. So, and also I do remember that time they shown us some more gameplay footage about this Animal Crossing game called later on became Animal Crossing New Leaf, which as a result of that kind of stuff though, most people found this to be one of the most successful Animal Crossing games ever made, especially concerning about the fact that until the 14th of June, during the forms of this year, it will mark the 10th anniversary of their game's release in the UK version. Oh, and on top of that, they also shown us the limited edition Animal Crossing themed Nintendo 3DS XL as well. So either way, that seems very, very cool and satisfying at the same time. So either way though, because chances are though, that when it comes to like game selections on the 3DS lineup, oh, and also I do remember at that time they first revealed more of those 3DS Virtual Console games, which turns out to be the Legend of Zelda Oracle of games, which there were Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, and usually I did have a great time with those games on my 3DS versions, because usually getting them physically is actually a little bit hard to come by, and on top of that, because of worried about the dying battery and stuff like that for the save data and stuff like that. But aside from all that stuff though, is about the fact that, well, usually relatively speaking though, despite I never actually downloaded the Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons or Ages or something like that back in the day, because again, more into the forms of Mario and Sonic stuff after all. And let's just, oh, okay, so we can't activate that particular yellow ball right there. So, but hey, at least we are able to get ourselves the blue ball, thanks to the forms of that particular water fountain that we somehow deactivated and stuff like that. So, potentially speaking, I think relatively speaking, getting those colored balls is actually a lot easier compared to the forms of how it does it on the console version, in my opinion, since because about the fact that this is all top-down perspective, so it makes about the fact that, you know, trying to nab those balls is actually a lot easier to manage, especially if you let them get into the corner, and then basically though, if you're trying to able to get them cornered, basically you would able to get the chance to able to get the actual one of those colored balls very miraculously easy. So either way, so now we've actually gone with the actual blue ball, so now we need to obtain, I would say the red ball is up next, so in some cases let me go ahead and put the key into the keyhole, and straight to the point, we got ourselves the red ball. Oh, I have to catch it. Even though Piglet doesn't usually say that in during the forms of this version of the game, so either way, there's the second ball has been obtained, and we've only got one left, which appears to be, of course, the yellow one. So, of course, we do need to find out one of those keys until we're able to actually access to, well, what else? The forms of the third and final colored ball. So, I would like to able to try to deal with that mirror enemy over there, but I think I'm also able to give this a pass, because as far as I'm aware, I just want to able to get this stream finished before we move on to the next one. So, and speaking of such, we come across into a yellow ball, so anyway, and I do remember that time they firstly announced there was Shin Maki Tatsumi 4, which appears to be on the 3DS as far as I'm aware, despite I wasn't really interested with the series as much. And also I do remember that time about the fact that they shown us the forms of another installment of the forms of, I would say, the Professor Layton game, which I think I somewhat lost interest with the series now, but that's just because about the fact that I just somehow honestly forgot about it. And also, I do remember that time I was very excited back in the day in 2013. They shown us a brand new Zelda game on the Nintendo 3DS, which is more likely a spiritual successor to the likes of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which later on became The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, which as a result of that kind of stuff though, I was, yeah, stoked by it, especially despite I didn't actually get the game in day one, sadly, until 2014, because I was originally trying to able to get the game during the forms of being Christmas in 2013, but unfortunately I didn't get the chance for that, and wow, that yellow ball just somehow ran into me by complete accident. Okay, that seems kind of weird, all things considered, and something tells me once we're able to obtain all 3 of those balls, basically though, much like the console version of the game, the fire's gone out. So because of this though, we do need to backtrack again, but this time we need to ask Rue to able to lend us the lamp. So yeah, it's very similar to the console version, except there's no blackout or anything. So because of that, all it gets is just, you know, the fire went out, and that's all there is to say. But again, it's probably because the Game Boy Advance's limitations, so which I've already addressed that quite a few times. And also, I can't help but notice, but apparently my game decides to lag a little bit. I mean, it's going a bit too slow for my part, but I guess that's okay. I mean, like I said, it's just about the fact that it's been a very long time since I actually utilized something related to its capture footage on the likes of certain Game Boy Advance games as far as I'm aware, so anyways though, so let's go ahead and head back a little bit, so just to ensure that we will be able to come across into certain situations as far as this is concerned, so we'll just have to able to ignore those heffalumps and wurzels for now on, so either way. But yeah, for what I've noticed about the fact that when I did look back on the April 2013's Nintendo Direct, at least back in the day in the 17th of April I meant to say, that it's actually pretty dang good Direct in my opinion, although it does have some issues for sure, like for instance about the fact the matter is though that, well, I think that's as far as I can think about it. I apologize for my commentary gets a bit bare bones at this point, but that's just mainly because about the fact that unfortunately there's not much else I can talk about when it comes to news, updates, or anything else to be more specific, aside from looking back on certain things in the past, so but that's just my kind of point of view, especially concerning about the fact that, well, relatively speaking about the fact that we've almost at the halfway point in terms of 2023, so either way though, that might be saying something, so because, yeah, not much else to say. Oh, and on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that I can assure to you, we're actually getting, I don't know about you, about the fact the matter is, though, when it comes to, like, other things I would like to discuss upon, because, well, I think something tells me one of those games is about to be releasing, so either way, let's go and lend the lamp, and because of that, we can now head back into Eeyore, so just in case we can able to fix the actual light again. So either way, oh yeah, let's talk about the forms of certain releases as far as I'm aware, that basically though is about the fact that, actually, to be honest with you guys, I think that's as far as I can usually try to discuss upon this, especially that, again, I would have liked able to mention something more aside from, you know, the flashback on 10 years ago, but that's as far as I can talk about, so. And I don't know about the fact that the demo version of Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp might be on its way, but we shall see what happens in due time. Oh! Something's worth noting for is that Minecraft Legends has recently came out today, so I can assure you for this point, and same applies with the forms of Disney Speedstorm as well. So relatively speaking though, if you want to get a chance to able to experience those games, well, more power to you. Well, despite the fact that I wasn't really going to be able to gain those games for myself, well that's just because I'm still pretty much hyped by the likes of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, so. Speaking of which though, is about the fact I come across into the game's advertisement on the TV during the other day. Well, I'm probably not going to be able to go into any spoiler territory for the time being, but that's just mainly because I just don't want to get everything else too spoiled heavy, more like. So either way, let's just go and ignore this particular basic wurzel for now on. God, I will admit though right away, journey way back to the forms of Eeyore's location is actually a lot more lengthy and longer compared to the console version, because in the console version, it's actually pretty super duper quick. able to actually get to that point. Well, I can assure you for this point because of the handheld's limitations, I guess, so... Alright, there we go. Now we've made our way back to the forms of where Eeyore was, and we'll skip those Heffalumps and Wurzels for now. And straight to the point, we can now able to utilize the lamp to lit up the flame again, so that way, despite the actual room is still bright enough as it goes by. So either way, let's just go and activate the lamp, and I think... Oh, really? Okay, come on. Well, that's a bit of annoying at times, especially you have to be extremely dead center when it comes to using items and such. I mean, that never happened to me before on the console version, but either way, I guess that's something. So either way, and something tells me we basically completed Eeyore's dream, so yeah, I guess that's something. Piglet proved that if you really believe in yourself, you can help your friends come out of the gloominess of situations. And it always shows us just a rainbow, and that's all there is to say. So either way, suffice to say, I think we should probably end things off at this point right here, and there's a new password feature, so no comments there. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Piglet's Big Game for the Game Boy Advance. Instead, we'll move on to Rabbit's Dream next. So I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas.